Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of
We Can't Stop Snapping. Captain Carter and Goliath have just landed, and we're looking at an entire season of some pretty interesting characters. Wanted to give you guys our thoughts on how these new cards are landing and what we have to look forward to on the rest of the season. Where should you scrimp and save, and where should you invest your resources to have the best decks? Brad, I heard that you have already passed on one of this season's cards.
Yeah, I mean, saying pass is, I guess, is a loose term. It's more of an indifference, because I did use the one key I had on the week just to see if I would like, get lucky. Yeah, but it wasn't like I'm really aiming to go for... Like, if I really wanted to go for Goliath, I probably would have pushed really heavy into like using the gold that I have and trying to maximize like missions and credit output to get... Because I could probably swing another couple of keys for the week.
Just blow the stockpile, be able to get another shot.
Right. I could always get 3. It's whatever. I threw one up in the air. I got the Cersei skin, and I'm not too broken up about it. Goliath is one of those cards where, like, I think if you got him now, you're going to be very pleased with yourself in about 2 months' time when he's inevitably buffed to a 2/3 after the 2/2 buff didn't work.
Interesting. You think he's going to keep on going up, because right now, I actually see one of his advantages is that he gets that Renslayer discount, and Renslayer is currently a pinnacle piece of one of his most competitive lists. And it's a list that I think utilizes Goliath fairly well. I don't know. I feel like he's landing okay for me. I was testing him, and my initial testing, I actually liked him better than Captain Carter. That might have swung.
I think I would agree with that idea. I think they're both a little weak on arrival, but I don't think they're bad. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's where it's tough of, like, if Second Dinner buffs them, then, especially for Goliath, because he would get out of that Renslayer range, which is a cornerstone of his current best lists.
Sure.
He is more powerful, yes, but then he's twice as expensive in a number of your cases. So then they might have to buff him yet again. You're right, to be a 2/3. But yeah, I initially started my testing with a Zoo deck, and everybody in chat was like, yo, no Goliath? Why? It's like, well, Dazzler is just better in that deck. And I think that's where Goliath lands for a lot of different cases. Like, he is an improvement for the pure ongoing, like, Spectrum deck is where he's going to generate the most. I've also seen him do really well in a Thanos deck because of all those cheap ongoing stone effects. But outside of those, it's going to be hard for him to compete against other 2-drops in his slot, because I think, honestly, Dazzler could play in that Thanos deck as well. And of course, she plays in the Zoo deck.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, there was, once upon a time, a really effective ongoing Zoo-esque type of deck with Thanos, and he would have been great for that originally, but I think with all the changes to cards around Thanos and the stones themselves and stuff like that, even though a couple of them do have ongoing now, it could work, but it feels like that whole archetype as a whole is just a little bit weaker, even with a couple of additions of, like, the ongoing text on a couple of the stones. It feels like you're just better off doing normal Zoo stuff with
a lot of those classic, like, Thanos Zoo lists were really just pulled forward by, like, Orange Stone and Green Stone, their old versions being so overpowered that you could get away with running what now is very suboptimal, and it didn't matter because you could just brute force your way through with an energy cheat and a 1/5 randomly out there, but now you have to be a little bit more careful, pace your card selection a little bit more carefully.
So you said you're maybe leaning towards Carter being the better of the two?
I'd probably still land on Goliath being the stronger of the two. Carter certainly has more upside when you get activations, like when you really get the synergy built around her. It's just such a high ask. When we've had so many season pass cards that are just blatantly overpowered out of the gate, like Falcap, and then you're like, so wait, I now have to find a way to buff her to be able to get really good power output. And I also have to have a lane that's open to play her in the front row by turn 4 or later, of course, but later gets even harder. And then I also still have to have time to fill in spaces behind her to make use of the buffs. And the most common ongoing like multipliers in terms of Moonstone right now doesn't work for her. Captain Carter feels like she's begging to be a 3 cost. But then that line of like 3 versus 4 tips so heavily of like overpowered almost immediately.
Right. She immediately has to drop to a 3-2 at the very least, but I could see her easily being like a 3-1. And now they start saying, okay, well now because she curves nicely from Forge as a 2 cost
Renslayer or Forge.
There's that too. Like so like it's such a dangerous thing because you make her 3, like you said, that line between 3 and 4 is so tight.
Yep.
Like it's so easy to just jump into like, oh, this card's busted now. It's
exactly.
Kind of like from 2 to 3, right?
It's actually fascinating to me how we're hitting the threshold on some of these cards. It's like the old, which is better, a 10 power or a 9 power because Shang is everywhere. Well, which is better, a 2 power or a 1 power because you can just run Renslayer and then take a cost off. Like, it's kind of fascinating.
I do wonder if. Look again. I said it before on this podcast, and I will say it again. Shang-Chi, as he stands, needs to exist.
Yeah.
It is a necessity.
Yes.
If Shang-Chi did not exist in the game, or that effect didn't exist in the game, I think Snap would have died 2 years ago. Like as a card game, he is that integral, of like balance and stuff like that.
Right.
And on top of which, if Shang-Chi was released as a new card right now, having not existed, people would be saying he's broken on release.
Well, yeah, this is just like such a different. It's a paradigm shift as to how you think about the game and like what the power's values are, how dangerous it is, requiring you to run protection cards for high value cards like Cosmo and Armor.
Yep.
Yeah.
All that being said, is I still find, and this is partially due to the way Snap is as a singleton game, being 1 copy of a card per deck, small deck sizes, so it's like an 83% chance to draw any given card throughout all 6 turns of a game without any additional draw power into your deck, like Adam Warlock and just Olympia coming up or whatever, just to get more draws. All that combined with how powerful and game-changing Shang-Chi is, I find his design, as it stands right now, and for a while, to be incredibly boring, and it toes the line of, like, necessary, but also feels so bad, it makes you not want to play after you have 2 or 3 games in a row where you just keep losing to Shang-Chi swinging at the end of the game kind of thing. And yes, I understand there's counterplay and you can hold back, throw priority, and that's all skill expression for the game. And of course you could run, things like Cosmo, things like Armor. Of course, these are all things you can do. But when the deck size is so limited to 12 cards and you need to have cards that accelerate and push forward your game plan, all your opponent has to do is find 1 slot to put Shang-Chi in to counter what you're doing, where I have to dedicate 2 or 3 other slots to stop what Shang-Chi's doing. I would like them to maybe. I'm finally coming around to the idea of like, what if he hit both sides? I'm finally.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I used to be a big proponent of like, no, he's fine, whatever, and I still think he's mostly fine, but he's a little bit too reliable. Or I guess the better way to put it is he's too unintuitive in the sense of like you don't really have any thought behind it. It's very simple. It's like, okay, I throw down Shang-Chi in this lane, I win the lane most likely, right? And that's really it. There's never any idea of like, oh, I need to surround it with a bunch of small cards on my side with Shang-Chi because I don't want to hit my own 10 power card. And there's a little bit more like play around it. I think that actually would be pretty good for the game at this point.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see. I mean, it'd be fun to try out. I'm always interested in seeing like different versions of these cards, especially because Second Dinner is so like if they hate it, they can change it back within like 2 weeks, right, on the next OTA. So it'd be fun to see. I honestly I like Shang where he's at. I just would like to see more diversity in the other control card options. Like, can we please get Valk at a 4? Just again for 2 weeks and see what happens, because that's similar to your idea, right, of like it affects both sides and it's trimming off the top for those big cards. Valk hitting the opponent's stack is crazy, but then she's also going to be hitting your side, so you have to deck build around that. And then we've had
he is the number 1 played card right now. He's at 33.75%.
Yep, but he's probably not a very good win rate is normally what it is.
59.44 when played.
Ooh, that is pretty solid indeed. But yeah, I think that in terms of his like needing to, some kind of change, just because like not all of the meta decks are using him, and because there's been plenty of times where he's the most played, but also just like I've seen times where he's the most played, but then a 50% win rate card.
Sure.
That I think that he's still fine, just sticking around. Snap has been very careful of like getting a control card for every meta type that we see, and Shang is for when you play the big dumbs, and Enchantress is for when you play the ongoings, and Mobius is for when everyone's doing energy cheats.
Enchantress has both sides. Cosmo punishes both sides. You can't hit it, you can't do on reveals in that lane. So like again, Shang-Chi will kind of like
Shadow King hits both sides.
Yep. So I I know someone's gonna comment being like, oh, I'm stupid and I shouldn't be. They're glad I'm not a game designer or something like that. I'm not saying to balance this based purely off of just the data. That's such a huge component of it, and you always have to look at the data, the win rate and stuff like that of cards, right?
Right.
But I do think it'd be good for the game in a strategical sense. Like it adds a bit more play to the card and elevates it to a different like level. Though I would be worried that a symptom of that is people would stop playing Shang-Chi because they hate the negative, and then by proxy you end up having big dumb decks become really popular again because Shang-Chi dips down, and it will hopefully it would readjust after that point, but I would worry that it would hurt the stock of them too much. Then you
because some of the most stifling metas have been Shuri and Suitor, I think, and maybe that's just my taste, but that's kind of been my impression of like looking at the game's meta health big picture, and Shang is the direct counter to those two. So if we take a step off of him and those come back up, like I will not be a fan, but the people who love those decks will be.
But what if he's like a 4/5 or 4/6 like Enchantress and hits both sides?
Sure, give him a little bit more consistency, but then he's hitting both sides. Yeah. No, there's a lot of design symmetry if you go Shadow King, Enchantress, Shang, Valkyrie. These are all reciprocal. Rogue would then be like, is she the one standout that steals? I guess Rogue and Teenage Warhead, because they're only affecting the opponent. Teenage Warhead actually used to be reciprocal, but now she's not.
Yeah. Well, Rogue it has the randomness thrown in. It's not a guarantee of hitting all things like Enchantress or Shang-Chi does. So I guess that makes sense of why it's asymmetrical.
Yeah. You could also have Shang really just be one, right? You could say Shang hits the most powerful opponent's card if it is 10 or more power. But if they have a stack of multiples, the other ones will stay.
Interesting.
Because I think I've heard that argument for Shang before when it's like everyone is running him. So that instead of seeing your whole lane get wiped, you're only going to see your top card get knocked off.
I do have one interesting thought before we move on for Shang-Chi. What if it was a bounce card? What if it was something that says return all X power or more cards to each player's hands in this lane?
Yeah. No, I've been waiting for a card that will bounce. We currently have nothing that bounces an opponent's card to their hand, right?
Right.
I would love to see this come into the game. Now, whether it is specifically targeting the most powerful, and then if that has to come with, has to be played by, cannot be played turn 6, so that they have a chance to replay it. Maybe it has to have something like that, but I want to see that kind of card come in. I also want to see something that spits cards straight to the deck, kind of like Lockjaw, but then you could redraw them.
Oh, you could add that restriction on Shang-Chi as well. Can't be played on turn 6, like Magic, or effect doesn't work on turn 6 or something.
Yep. You could also have a spin-off of Shang where he only affects cards revealed this turn. It's kind of like the Alioth idea, so that it's that snap moment of the simultaneous reveal, like, are you going to be able to hit their card? Did you figure out where they were playing it, kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, look, again, I think Shang is fine. I just would like a little bit more play to him. Or, you know what, better yet, just if the deck size is increased, double their thing, I think actually that would make Shang-Chi feel even worse for when they do have it. That's kind of how I feel against like Arishem decks. You have 20 cards in your deck, and you always have the Shang-Chi or the counter card that you have. Okay,
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, they had Enchantress, they had Shang, and it's like the Arishem created a Shadow King, or the Arishem created a Quinjet at the beginning, or something wild like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess before we move on to the preview stuff, if you were to give a rating for both Carter and Goliath right now out of 5, what would you give them?
Goliath probably goes 3, because I do see him has, like I said, an upgrade to that Spectrum deck, which is just like a little bit off meta, but he's very inflexible. I don't see him getting played in other things. I know that he is landing in some, where did I have it? Thanos decks have been using him. Unfortunately, all of our early number data here is skewed because people have had the weekend missions. So if you're running like the control cards to everybody else trying to do ongoings, then your win rate is incredible. For Captain Carter, I'm probably going like... Sorry, you go ahead on Goliath.
I would give it 3. Just average. Just an average card.
Man, I'd probably put Carter right now at a 2, because she's playing in those exact same decks, but I more often than not want to cut her and run something else. Yeah. I think that could change once we get to Dum Dum Dugan, who's going to be releasing later on this season. But where do you feel about the landing spot of Captain Carter here on release?
I'd give her like a 2.5. I think she's just a hair below average. I don't think she's abhorrent, but I do think you're correct that she's, odds are, the first cut. Because, like, I mean, I look at a lot of these lists, and, like, I immediately am like, well, I feel like Moonstone would just be better in that same spot.
Right.
And then there's the deck where Moonstone's in the list, and I'm like, well, I think I would rather play Moonstone more often than not than the Captain Carter.
Yeah, I had, in my testing, some of the decks were like fleshed out, and I'd have Captain Carter in hand. I'm like, I just don't want to play her right now. And then I'd end up in a board space position where, like, well, now my spaces are full, so I don't have a spot where I can really get full use out of her. Yeah. And she just sits in hand.
She's a bit too reliable, or relying on like Spectrum kind of buff or stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe we'll find an ongoing list that gives her some kind of buff beyond just ongoing stuff. I don't know.
Right, because if she's just giving the buff to the 2 backline cards, she's a 4/9, which is not good enough against other cards you could run at her price point, or even like good enough for a deck that might run a control card instead, etc. So you need to find a way to buff her, which is like Captain America, Spectrum, Forge, or Dum Dum coming up. But then you're just asking for all these moving pieces to come together and the stars to align, and also to play her early on a location that still has space for her to be in the front row by turn 4. And then if you're playing her on like 5 or 6, you have to have something very carefully constructed, which there's like one deck is doing with Sarah, so you get the energy discount, so you can dump a lot behind Carter at the end, or even dump Carter at the end, but it's tough.
Right. All right, you want to get Dum Dum out of the way since he's the timed event or whatever?
Yeah, so this is the limited time game mode that we're going to be getting. I saw that we're getting a run back of High Voltage, though it's Deadpool Diner's turn in the limited time game mode rotation, so we'll see what they actually hit us with. But Dum Dum is a 2/3 ongoing. Your front row cards here have +1 power, cannot add to itself. So it's a 2-cost mini Captain Carter, a 2-cost you want to hold till the end, so then he gets played in the back row. If he gives that buff to Captain Carter, she then is going to use that buff and add it back to the cards behind her. So you get this nice handoff of power, and that little combo might be enough to elevate Captain Carter. What do you think, Brad?
I think it's an interesting design because Carter, as we know, is as a 4-cost. It's you want to go like, your 1 and 2 cost in one lane, and then you go your 3 cost on a separate lane, ideally. So that way the second card behind the 3 cost, or you want to just sequence it no matter what, where the second card played in a lane is Carter, and then you have your 5 and 6 go behind her, or your extra 1 drops later on, however you sequence that, right, to give the buff. Dum Dum being a 2 cost, you don't want to play him early because he affects the ones in front. You want him to actually come down like on 4 alongside another 2 cost, or on 5 with a 3 cost to like put him behind a couple of cards. Or even let's say on 6 you go Carter on 4, and then on 6 you go him and Moonstone behind the Carter.
That would go crazy, right? Because Moonstone is going to be able to double Dum Dum because he is cheap enough. So then he's giving +2. Captain Carter takes the +2, spits it back out. That's equivalent to having Captain America on the Captain Carter lane, but it's just like another way to use Captain Carter as like a conduit for some mass buffs.
Which I think Dum Dum would make a lot of sense in that one deck you were showcasing that had the Sarah in there to try and dump stuff all at once. And then like the Gwenpool makes sense, kind of buff it and that kind of stuff there. As far as the regular ongoing list, I don't see him being successful there because of the way the sequencing is, especially the versions that have like the Doom 2099 and stuff like that, right, where you only want to be playing 1 card. You're just trying to curve out. Whereas this Surfer deck here, I think is pretty interesting with the Carter, of course, and with Dum Dum as well, to just give a little bit of bumps for your cards there. I don't know. It's interesting, and this list right here could very well evolve into cutting the Surfer stuff entirely and kind of shifting back to more of an ongoing shell, but with like maybe instead of the Surfer stuff, it's ongoing like a Control Sarah deck with like more of like your counter stuff. Your what's it called? Red Guardian, of course. There's Shang-Chi already in that list. Your Shadow King and stuff like that, because Shadow King doesn't bother you at all with your Dum Dum buffs and your Carter buffs, all that kind of stuff. So I think
kind of like we had Toxic Sarah for a bit because that Toxic package was really point efficient. It could be that Carter Dum Dum becomes that, or they get another kind of consistency piece. Could be kind of fun.
I think that's probably the best spot. Overall, I'm not super high on him as a card, but we'll see how it goes.
The great thing is that he's free, right? You get to experiment with him. Now, do you think you're ever going to see... Which one do you think he is more likely to go solo? Like, you have the package, right? Carter and Dum Dum clearly have strong synergy together. But are you going to see more decks run Dum Dum without Carter, or more decks run Carter without Dum Dum?
Oh, Dum Dum for sure, just because the opportunity cost is a 2, especially with things like Sarah, like I'm saying, where it goes down to 1, where it makes a lot more sense to weave in those again, remember the old classic Sarah control lists were doing a lot of 2 costs. You had Lizard, you had Maximus, and like stuff that you put down late game. I think the deck usually ran 3 or 4 2 costs just to have a bunch of 1 cost power outputs to go in hand with your Shang-Chi and stuff like that on the last turn, or even just your Shadow King. Right. And he makes a lot of sense in that because not only are you taking away power from your opponent's side, but you're also adding extra little boost, albeit just a couple of power. But how many times in these control decks do that couple of power make the whole difference? So I think that's where it makes the most sense to me. And Carter seems like the easiest cut in that type of shell.
Especially because like Moonstone is going to pick, so Dum Dum, if he's hitting the 2 cards, is a 2/5. That's cuttable completely, but a 2/7 is feeling a little bit better. But I don't know, at the same time, like you could just run Goliath, and Goliath on Moonstone is probably going to be taller. So I'm a little torn on.
And you can even run Goliath in this ongoing counter, like our control deck kind of thing. Because Goliath on average is like with Sarah, with Dum Dum, with like Lizard and stuff like that. Goliath's probably going to on average be like a 2/5, maybe a 2/6.
That's right where Dum Dum is.
Yeah, you don't need him to be this 2-9 or whatever, where you're just an all-in ongoing list. He doesn't even match Lizard and Maximus, really.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Moving ahead to next week, we are getting Kahori, the Reshaper of Worlds, a 4/6. On reveal, each card in your hand gives one of your cards in play plus 1 power. So she is going to, at the time that you play her, assess your hand size and then randomly spit buffs out to one of your cards in play. It doesn't say one of your other cards in play. Does this imply she could be buffing herself? Or actually, in the game logic, is she not considered played until after the on reveal resolves?
Oh, that's a good point. I can't remember. I know we've had other instances where this exact question comes up.
Right.
Little niche things.
Now, I think in most cases, you're going to want to be running her with synergies where buffing the other cards is more important. So I hope that's the way that it plays out. Obviously, if she buffs Captain Carter, hey, that's incredible. If Kahori is your turn 5 follow-up.
He curves out nicely into Devil Dino. Look at that. And you care about hand size. Hooray. Yep. Now, will Devil Dino be like a player with this kind of card? I doubt it. I would like that to be the case. I'm sure that I think the developers also would like that to be the case. That's why she's forecast. But odds are it's probably just going to be some shield stuff or like some things like Valentina or whatever, or even just like Thanos to give you more draw. She probably goes crazy in Thanos, to be honest. Just anything that increases your own hand size. And again, you don't have to go into this idea, just like I was talking about with Goliath in a control shell. You don't need to go into this idea of like, I need my Kahori all the time to be essentially like a 412 or like a 420 kind of thing, like with like how many cards I have in hand. The max would be what, +7 if you can.
So 413.
So that's her max. If she can hit 410, or better yet, Gwenpool, right, says gives somebody +2 power 3 times. Well, right. She's also a 412. If you can be around the idea of Gwenpool, which I think comparing them apples to apples is probably incorrect because Gwenpool on average spreads the power around. Kahori hits everything at 1, and something that's already on the board. So I do think 410, 4-9 in her case is actually pretty good, because you're think about Forge, right? You're buffing a single card by a decent amount. So I think you don't need to go all in and be like, I need to jet. You don't need to run like all the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to be able to have a huge hand size when she comes down. I think you just want to have 4 or 5 cards in hand on average if you play her, and you're very happy.
Yeah, so 4 cards gives you that 410, 4-5 at the 411. That's just like pretty good stat stick, but it is still, like you said, up against the Gwenpool and like Galacta that are still putting out really great power levels for the 4 costs, and also like really flexible cards. The advantage of Kahori is that she's all at once, kind of like Ares, but you don't have to deck build around having the higher power to score Ares. So I think Kahori is a little bit more flexible in that regard. On the other hand, Gwenpool and Galacta, I think, are much more easy to multiply the benefit of their buffs because they're either putting it at the moment the card is played or putting it on the cards in hand. Because, like, you know, my Brood getting buffed by Kahori is way weaker than my Brood getting buffed in hand by Gwenpool. And I'm trying to think, like, what are the cards that would make...
I'm looking at the 3 costs right now to try and see, like, what you want to hit. And one thing that popped out to me initially are some of your powerful ongoing cards, like Patriot, for example. Getting if sometimes I know it's nice and more on average correct to just play Patriot later in the game so you don't get hit by a Enchantress. Sometimes you have to curve it out. Having a 3-1 Patriot now be a 3-5 or 3-6 seems pretty good to me. Another one that I really like, because we mentioned Thanos with this kind of deck might be pretty good with Kahori. Fastos would be a nice one. Fastos is only a 3-3. You're either buffing or discounting all your cards in deck in a Thanos list, and now giving him up to like a 3-7, 3-8 also just gives him insane value on top of that. And then that gives you turn 5 to just kind of like hand dump with all your cards and all that stuff. Otherwise, like Mr. Fantastic, Mobius, stuff that you just want to curve out on average on 3 more consistently. Those would be good ones as well. Maybe Hope Summers for like your ramp. If you're really desperate, Ironheart, right? In those kind of decks, sometimes you just play a couple of cards, or like, a turn 1, turn 2, and then one of those is a token generation card, like a Squirrel Girl or like Mr. Sinister or whatever. And that can give you an option to buff the Ironheart that you have to curve out for some reason.
But so like the really
Dakin?
bust Dakin was great. Yeah, so like I want to go to the really busted ones, right? Dakin doubles. If you can curve Dakin into Kahori, that would be amazing. If you can curve Kahori into Deadpool, probably never fits, but like that would be a huge buff to him. You've got Multiple Man is not getting played at all, and we're not seeing that Phoenix Force deck, but
you might be able to do it. Think about it this way. Okay, turn 1 Deadpool, turn 2 Carnage the Deadpool, turn 3 Deadpool plus Hulk Armor or Hulkbuster.
Yeah.
Then turn 4 you play Kahori.
And then it's stacked. Or what you would really love is Nico destroy and draw, so the hand size is bigger, and Deadpool got an activation. Then he comes back, Kahori pings him, and you go hard after that.
Yeah. It's a tight window where you need to make sure you have like Venom on 5 to really make it worth it. But then you want to also, like 5, you basically need to go Deadpool, X-23, Venom. That way you can do Deadpool null on 6. So it's a tight window that may not be worth it because you're cutting something in your destroy package to fit in Kahori. But it's certainly worth the exploration, I feel, at least to kind of garner how it feels.
I saw a guy hit either top 200 or top 100 with a Galacta Deadpool deck. So Kahori is the same cost there. It's just slightly different board position on when you're getting those buffs onto that key double me kind of card. Kind of fun. Obviously, Iron Man is awesome. And then one of the biggest winners is Captain Carter. If you can Captain Carter curve into Kahori and put any of those buffs onto Carter, she's making triple use of those buffs. The nice thing is you can play Kahori onto that lane as well, and then just stack it.
One thing that's interesting actually is Werewolf by Night. Played on 3, Kahori buffs it potentially.
True, moves it, buffs it, moves it.
Now, but keep in mind, all these things we're saying of like, cool, what can you potentially go from 3 to 4 and curve into? It's not a guarantee that Kahori hits that because you're probably playing something on 1 and 2.
Yep.
So that's one thing to keep in mind while we're kind of brainstorming stuff.
The Dakin one is the one that's staying with me, as like, because like Bullseye Dakin is so strong right now. If you had another way to make that Dakin larger, but really the Golden Road with that deck is getting 2 of them.
Adam Warlock. As
sure.
A 2 cost dropping that's like I'm also trying to think of like good 2 costs you're happy to hit in the worst case.
But like I could just play a stat stick of a 4 cost behind Adam to the same effect, right?
True, but while your opponent looks to dedicate board space to contest the Warlock to stop it from drawing, you can then play Kahori in a different lane to establish power elsewhere while still transferring the power you wanted to put behind Warlock into that lane regardless.
Yeah, she's going to balance your power differently, but you could accomplish the same goal by just deck building a little bit differently, so it'll be interesting. I think Kahori's landing at like high enough raw stats that she's going to be playable, and she's going to be one of these like good card decks. She can just slot into most of those, and she can play very well into Thanos, which is great right now because Thanos is fairly competent, especially these Thanos Wiccan kind of decks.
I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I am pretty confident in looking at Kahori and the rest of the cards for this month, and to a lesser extent, even potentially next month. I think she might just be the best card.
Really? Spoilers. We have so many other good ones to get to. You're actually putting her that high.
I think she is without a doubt the best card the more I think about it, because her opportunity cost is so small. And again, I think sequencing her with other cards that, like, because the Warlock is really what makes me think about it. Sequencing her with other cards where you kind of want to encourage your opponent to play into them. That way you can spread out your board space. I'm a huge fan of this. I think on rate, her floor is crazy high.
Yes.
Her ceiling can be really high as well. And I think because she's just like hitting things on board already, she is going to be, on average, her floor is better than both Galacta and Gwenpool.
Yes, because like playing Galacta or Gwenpool on turn 6 is very weak, right? So because Kahori is going to come with all her power, then it makes her more flexible, and if you draw her at the end, can make good use of her. And because we've seen Galacta and Gwenpool so much in any kind of good card competitive deck, I think Kahori is going to... You will play her differently, but she will also be able to find a landing spot.
And really, it makes me kind of think of the Sanctum Showdown event, where like the way I was saying how you beat the Guardians in that is you kind of let them win those lanes early on, but not give them the power boost. I think that's a good thing to carry over with the card like Kahori, is allowing yourself to build other lanes and establish power presence there while still buffing up the other lane on the other side without dedicating a spot to it, like an actual card slot.
And without potentially being a card that's stacked up tall enough to be knocked over by Shang, right? She's spreading out all those buffs nicely.
Yep, calling it now. We'll check back next month or so, but I think she's gonna be the best card of the month, and I think she's really good compared to a lot of other cards the last couple months, and looking forward to.
Yeah, she just has like the raw stat stick ability to be really good. I think the card that Second Dinner wants to be the best of the season is Infinite Ultron, because this guy is bringing a whole slew. We get Infinite Ultron versions of every Infinity Stone. He is a 5/6 on reveal. Add 2 of Ultron stones to your hand, so you will get a selection of 2 of these 6 power stones. Oh boy. 5/6, obviously very below rate, and painfully, if you play him on 6, you're not going to get a benefit of the stones, because the stones pretty much all have to be played to do something for you. So your window of playing him very small, and your return at the moment you play him also very small. So let's look at the stones.
Yes,
we have blue stone.
Our 6 stones like normal, but here's you notice the one thing about them, Teddy, they're all 3 costs. So they really want you to go turn 5 him and turn 6 a couple of stones.
Yep, lockstep. I mean, it makes deck building simple so that everything else that you build in your deck can be like much, that lower curve, and then you just come up to him on the high end, then you've got it. But you're going to have to build pretty strong synergies with these stone effects, and then you're getting a grab bag of what those effects actually are. So here we go. Blue stone, 3/4 on reveal. Move the lowest power enemy card here to the location of Infinite Ultron. So you play this, and then it will knock the card from the stone spot to Ultron's spot. And it will be, again, the lowest power. So we see a little bit of Scream synergy, a little bit of opponent disruption. But 3/4 is not incredible, and Ultron doesn't do anything to opponents' cards at his spot.
Right.
So it feels kind of tough to see this being half of my turn 6. Let's move on. 3/1 Redstone on reveal. Add a drone here. Set its power to Infinite Ultrons. We get the drone synergy, so this means we'll get... The drone will be a 1-cost card, the same as normal Ultron spawns, but it will be a 6 power, or whatever power Ultron happens to be. So we could see a Shuri Ultron 12 power drone, maybe.
And there's another stone we can go over that might be like the lottery that you're hoping to hit with these cards.
Yep. So we'll move quickly here, and then we'll kind of do our summary thoughts. 3/1 Greenstone on reveal. Put a card from your hand here. Amazing. It is the Red Hawk, right? But without needing to be moved. It's just on reveal. That's beautiful.
Yep.
3/2 Yellowstone ongoing. Your on-reveal abilities here happen twice. So this is a Wong on a 3 cost, but again, only accessible by playing a 5 cost.
Yep.
And then the Power Stone. On-reveal, double Infinite Ultron's power. So you do have a way to straight double him.
Yep.
And then Orange Stone on reveal for each of your full locations. Give one of your cards there +2 power.
That's the worst one. I think that's the worst one by far.
It's like kind of old Dazzler almost.
Yeah, but it's a 3/7, right?
Well, no,
at the most.
It's for each, not each other, so it could be all 3, and then it would be 9.
Okay, but you'd have to have all 3 locations filled.
Yep. While playing a single card on turn 5 and only this, and then only 3 energy elsewise.
Yeah, I think that one's really bad. Okay. Dream sequence is like, okay, Shuri 4, Ultron 5.
Yep.
You just pull out Reality Stone and Power Stone, so then you can go Power Stone, double Ultron again, and then get a token copy.
Yep, and then say reality is what I make it.
Yeah, that is the dream. Okay, the dream
that happens in how many games?
When you don't hit that, or they just Shang-Chi or Shadow King, your Ultron, or whatever.
That too. And I think that they could, depending on initiative, attack the drone as well because his base power is 2.
Let me pull up a list that I have on Snapper right now. And let's see if this is where we put them. So right now I'm looking at my Nissan Sentra list. It's just Isan. It's Nico, Quinjet, Psylocke, Iron Patriot, Valentina, Electro, Wave, Blink, Agamotto, Isan, Red Hulk, and Magneto. Cool. We could probably do something with Isan and fit in Ultron, right? And I like the idea of having Ramp.
Yep, Ramp, Isan, and then he can pull the stones for free.
Yep.
To empower Ultron while we do other things.
Yep, and we can still. I do like the Blink package, to go like turn 3 or turn 3 Electro or Wave, or I guess even Luna Snow if you have that card. It would be what I would replace Psylocke with on average, to like bump up into your Ultron right away. To be able to get them down on turn 4. Obviously, if you have Electro, Wave, and Ultron in hand, you don't need to do the Blink, but it just give you a little extra flexibility. Now, do we still run the Agamotto? Does Ultron replace Agamotto in this list, or do you just keep Agamotto in?
I think Agamotto with the disruption, that's a through line to Ultron, and the ramp, we keep him.
So the issue that I'm having...
Also, there's a world, right, where if you get the Wong stone, whatever color that was, Agamotto loves that.
For sure.
So I think he's a keeper.
My only issue
what's our early curve?
It's Nico, Quinjet, Psylocke is in my list, though I would have that be Luna
so Quinjet's making those Infinite Ultron stones 2 costs, which is quite nice.
Same with Agamotto's spells.
Yep, and Agamotto's spells, also very nice.
As of right now, Iron Patriot's still on the list.
Sure.
And as well as Valentina, mostly just because they're good, solid card generators, and Isan likes those as well. You could swap either one of those if you don't have them for maybe like Kitty. Not Kitty, I'm sorry. What's her name? I'm blanking. Hawkeye's daughter, Kate Bishop.
Oh yeah, Kate.
You could do that, for instance.
Obviously, they're not getting discounted by Quinjet, but you still get the generation going.
Correct, and sometimes it's nice just to sequence them in. But I do think Iron Patriot and Valentine's a bit better there. And then you have your slight ramp stuff, Electro, Wave, and then Blink.
Okay, you are doing Electro.
Yep, Electro and Wave. I'm skipping Blink, and I'm skipping 4 costs entirely to really make sure that if we hit the 3s off of Blink, we go straight into at least Agamotto or Ultron, or then our 6 costs, which are then Isan, Red Hulk, and Magneto. So we have to figure out, like, do we trim down on one of those big, like, just juicy, good 6 costs to fit in the Ultron, or do we, like, I feel like
yes.
Keep Agamotto. So then what? Magneto's the cut then? Probably?
I think Magneto's the cut. Red Hulk is just so powerful. And Red Hulk especially is great with Luna Snow. So I'm looking at like Electro Wave Luna. What are we... Do we only run 2 of those or do we run all 3?
So right now, the one thing you're missing from my list that I'm looking at is I am running a single Nico. Now that is just for like...
She's like best in slot, versatile 1-drop.
Right. That was my thinking. So like I guess like ramping into a couple of 6-drops, but you're really trying to... I guess it makes sense to cut the other 6 costs because Isan and Red Hulk are so good. But then Agamotto and Ultron are also really good to hit early.
How do you feel about this Cersei? Because honestly, Cersei on Ultron is fine. I'll trade the 6-power 5-drop. Well, we have a couple stones that key off of Ultron being on the board, don't we?
Right. And my one worry...
But we'd be looking at like Iron Patriot, Valentina, Electro, like a cleanup for those bodies.
Right. But like, what are you hitting? Like, because like, if you look at like all the 2 costs, so many of them are just simple 2/3s, right? That like don't really do anything for you that late in the game when you're going on top of her. It's like you're hoping to high roll, I guess, like a Maximus, Black Cat, Lizard, Agent Venom, Cloak, just like to get the extra power. But then like you hit like the first Ghost Rider and you discard like a Magneto on accident and you're really upset now.
There's a lot of stuff that Cersei will do that's upsetting, but I'm just like looking at... Obviously, getting rid of Electro is the grail.
Oh, no. Cersei jumps up in cost, right? From 2 to
3.
Yeah,
so she's going to change Iron Patriot or Valentina to 3 costs, Electro to a 4 cost.
Okay, so that looks a lot nicer.
Right. And the thing is, if you both ramp and have Quinjet, you can play Cersei plus one of the stones.
Yeah.
Because the stone will be 2, and Cersei will be 5, and you'll have 7.
Having another way to get rid of the Electro thing besides Blink with Cersei is interesting, right?
Yep.
So you go Electro on 3, Cersei on top of Electro on 5. And if you have that hand anyway, then you go probably like, Iron Patriot or Valentina and then Electro on top of that. And then you Cersei on 4.
Right.
To get rid of both of them.
And it looks pretty good.
Right.
But the thing is, normally I'd run Cersei in place of like Infinite Ultron, I guess.
Right.
But we could cut Luna, run Cersei here.
Mm-hmm.
Cut Nico, I think, is cuttable.
I agree Nico is cuttable. It's just she was like one of those cards that like helped round out the list. And and sometimes you just hit that, destroy Electro, draw 2 kind of thing.
Right.
Which is always nice.
Beautiful stuff. You could run a control card here. You could run a high tempo 1-drop to be able to empower your Iron Patriot here. Or is there anything else that really synergizes with Infinite Ultron that we like?
I'm not too high on the Shuri into Ultron thing.
No, it's too unreliable, right? When you're getting only 2 of the stones.
So like I'm not sure what else really goes so good with Ultron. I'm trying to look through my collection right now to see what else there is. Like he's too expensive to like bounce the hand, trying to redo it again. It's just too tight of a window. I do think Isan is one of the best cards too, because like obviously if you're ramping, the hope is that you like wave on 3 into Isan directly, and then play Ultron on 5 naturally.
Yeah, it was
a stone.
It's like Quinjet, Iron Patriot, Wave, Isan, Infinite Ultron, and then Red Hulk with the free pull.
And honestly, even just playing Isan on 6 on occasion could get you there depending on what you have.
Yeah, he's at the 10 power and then he's pulling the freebie. Especially if you got the Agamotto spell that gave you the +4, right? Then you could play Isan a stone. Isan's the other stone, pulls the other stone for free, and you're looking like pretty powerful there.
The only thing I could think of that like is nice with some of the stones is like Misery, I suppose. But then you're looking at a different kind of deck. We're not
The
really
energy is too much, right?
correct.
Yeah.
And really, no other forecast I'm looking at here is anything of like note. Not
Right.
enough to like throw off the blink reliability. Because if you put in a forecast, now you have to remember, cool, if you blink away with this wave or electro like you want to, well, now you have a chance of pulling that forecast, and that forecast needs to be really damn good to justify that. And frankly, I don't see any forecast here that fits well enough into the deck list or is strong enough independently on its own into what this idea is doing to justify that wrench into your consistency.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I feel like there's so many interesting things happening with the stones. It's just they're so expensive, and their raw power output is all pretty low. Like I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. The more that we look at it, like I will definitely try this deck, and I will want it to be good, and I think it will be fun to play around with. But you're asking a lot to say that this 5/6 generating 3/4s is gonna get me to a win.
There's only 1, 3, 4, too. They're all
yeah. The other ones are lower. Yeah. So it's like
no, yeah, and I think this is probably the best home. And again, it's one of those things that's like you're just trying to give Isan more value at the end of the day, and sometimes it'll all work out for you nicely. But I think more often than not, you're relying just on let's get into Red Hulk, let's have Isan down, let's pull down some free spells from Agamotto, and let's just play good stuff and get extra value.
Right, you have a ton of like this deck is one of the most unpredictable decks possible. Blink, Cersei, Agamotto spells, Infinite Ultron spells, Valentina card, Iron Patriot card, Ramping Energy. The opponent's going to have no idea what you're going to want to play. So in that regard, like that's pretty good for cube generation, but you have to have a floor that's high enough just to get you to the end of games without opponents like beating up on you by snapping early. So that's where this deck I think is suffering.
The only other thing I can think of is like taking a page out of like Living Tribunal's book and doing like wave into what's it called, like you do magic with wave into like onslaught with Sarah, and then when you have the turn 6 Ultron, it makes it feel a little better because now those things cost 1 apiece, but that's so much effort for just what the stones are giving you.
It's pretty silly, and you still have to magic to get that to happen.
Yeah, and you have to hit the lineup, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I do think that just good old fashioned ramp is probably your best bet. I just the more I look at it, the more I'm a little suspicious or a suspect of Cersei in the list. Not because I don't think she can work on the stuff like the good things happen are nice, but like man, you have to build your board early a certain way for when you blink, that if you hit the Cersei, you guarantee good hits. It's the end of the world, but I could see some like locations just saying, well, now if you pull Cersei off this blink, you lose the game because you have no way to put all your cards into a singular spot at the moment based on the way the locations are.
There will be some awkward positions for sure, but the RNG Fest might be worth it. And then we have to bring it up anytime that we're getting a lot of 3-drops. Is there a surfer angle?
Surfer Ultron is certainly interesting.
Like instead of playing Sarah, you're playing Infinite Ultron, and then you're pulling these other guys.
Sure. So what? You're then playing one of the stones you get plus Surfer?
Probably.
And you're really kind of hoping that it's the Mind Stone is the one of those stones?
I think that to do Surfer Ultron, you have to play Magic version. So it's going to be Sarah Magic, Infinite Ultron, Surfer.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense. Oh, and then maybe you can go with the greedy idea with like Wong at that point then.
Yep.
Greedy Surfer with Wong Absorbing Man.
I should have just left him on, but so it's Infinite Ultron, Sarah. This is probably the only card that we're going to do this for, guys. Don't worry, we're not going to do it for every one of these cards, but Infinite Ultron brought just so much to the table.
Right.
You had to
like
see
if Thanos first came out.
You had to see the deck in front of you to like feel how it's actually going to do anything.
Yeah, I do like that. I do like the Surfer angle. You do Brood.
Yep, because that fills locations, which Infinite Ultron loves.
Yep. Obviously, we do the Absorber Man still because if you have the Sarah hit, then he's great with the Surfer at the end. Also, Absorber Man with the stones too. Absorber Man could be really good. Imagine you hit it. Imagine you have Mind Stone and you go Mind Stone Absorber Man at the end game.
Well,
and you just get 2 extra free cards.
You also have Grandmaster, who's like really solid there for a repeat.
Could do Grandmaster. I could see that being a cut though, but we'll go back to that. Because I'm seeing a lot of 4s.
Yep, not a lot of 3s. Is Juggernaut playable when you go turn 7?
No, I don't think he is.
Okay, because he's definitely the star of the turn 6 show, but at turn 7, diminishing returns.
Killmonger's vaguely interesting. Go classic Shaw, yeah.
I mean, Killmonger is just nice, little bit of control, cleans up your board to give you space if a location was dropping 1-drops.
Yeah.
And then you just go, heck, Nova. It is a deck. And remember, the Infinite Ultron is generating more 3-drops to give you a little bit more on the Surfer target side.
Right. Do we think the Gwenpool is too greedy?
No, we love Gwenpool on Brood, we love Gwenpool on Shaw, and we actually do like Gwenpool on Infinite Ultron.
That's true. Okay, let me ask you this then.
Maybe Wong is too greedy. What was that?
Maybe Wong is, and also maybe based on how much you fill already, maybe Grandmaster is just not going to work as often as you want it to.
Yeah.
So instead of that, what if we did
Galacta?
Yeah.
Right? Because Galacta is like the Golden Girl on Brood or Shaw as well, and Infinite Ultron.
Yep. Well, I'm saying also instead of Grandmaster, hear me out. What if we did Penny?
Okay, so Penny. On reveal, gives Spider, and then
there's a free cost, and also
but it merges.
But the Spider doesn't hurt your space as much because it merges.
No.
And
you get energy ramp, which is great. You get a move effect, which can balance out your board. It's cheeky. Not a lot of people are going to be running this.
Let you go from Penny on 2 into Galacta on 3. And then that can let you like buff up a magic, go like magic plus Nova on 4.
You only get the energy when you actually play the Spider, so it'd be you can do Penny on 3 Spider, or sorry, Penny on 2, Spider on 3, Sarah on 4.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Which is still good, but it's different. Or Infinite Ultron on 4.
That's true as well.
Yep. Yeah, maybe.
I was trying to think of like a 2 that like you actually can like just play on 2.
Yep.
You really can't do that with Grandmaster.
Right. Tempo. Well, it'd be Forge, potentially.
Yeah, Forge just might be better on average than Penny.
I don't know. You've captivated me with this Penny. Now we're going to keep Penny.
It's just fun. We don't want to just give you everyone the same stock Surfer list and say, okay, we throw Ultron in, call it a day. Let's give it a little bit of spice, a little bit of interest.
All right. With the time that we have left, let's close the book on Infinite Ultron. I think we're both fairly skeptical. We laughed at the decks. I don't think he's going to be meta.
He's going to be fun.
I think he's going to have a lot of balancing to get to competitive, but he's definitely going to be fun. Right. Now, I think what might be competitive out of the gate is Strange Supreme. Gains 2 power from merging. End of turn, merge one of your created cards into this. So, if we play him on curve.
The Ultron Isan deck, baby.
Yep. merge with all those created cards, get the extra bonus power from all of them. I feel like it's begging to be played in Zoo, where like Squirrel Girl is giving him the tokens that he can consume to get really powerful himself. You put like Cosmo behind him so that he just does his thing in his lane, and then you focus the rest of the game on almost everything else. Because right, the broodlings. The thing is that you want those tokens to stick, but like the squirrels or the Shanna She-Devil tokens that get spawned, like him taking all of those is totally fine. Like you really don't care.
Thanos
the
is
Thanos
stones
is
once
loving
you play
it.
them, they count it. The only thing I'd be worried about is absorbing Power Stone.
But even then, like, it's okay. I feel like when for most of your games, because if he absorbs on
merges, so does he keep the effect?
No, the effect, he keeps his effect. But he just takes their power and then adds 2 to that. So he's like Sebastian Shaw, but he's self-activating for all of these created cards, just eating them up. And then obviously Shadow King or Shang are ready to take him out. But if you can protect him, or if the opponent doesn't have those, he kind of goes crazy, because that's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's plus 10, making him a 212. That's just the bonus powers. Obviously, he'll be more than 12 because he's eaten other cards. You just have to provide him the food to keep on going. Yeah, this guy's going to be amazing. I love this idea.
I do too. I think he's going to be fun.
Oh, hold on. Is an Infinity Stone the Infinity Stone is a created card?
Yeah, so it would count Infinity Stones.
Yes. So I think that, I mean, man, the Thanos keeps getting fun toys. Thanos was, what did we say? He was going to be great with Kahari. Thanos is going to be great with this guy. Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. Honestly, Thanos might be good with Infinite Ultron because of some of like the board fill synergies. Maybe you just get more variety, right?
Hey, we could do the Thanos ramp deck.
Right. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Right. Because you have the Wiccan that you love to play in some of the Thanos versions, and then you can play Infinite Ultron with enough energy to actually get the stones and other stuff to the board. Maybe that's where we should have gone with Infinite Ultron. It's like a Wiccan shell. Another thing for the testing. 2 weeks out.
Hey.
I guess we do out of 5 ranking for Strange before we touch on Hydro Stomper.
I would say a 4, probably because he's above average, so a 4.
Yep.
Gonna be a good card. Just the floor is you play him on 2. He's like, how many 2 costs do we get anymore that are actually just really good to play on 2?
Right, they're continuing to design like the situational hold this like dum-dum, right?
Ooh, wait. What if could he be good in just like a curve out deck with Doom 2099 that just cares about like just token generations each time you play a card?
No. You don't want to eat the Doom bots. The Doom bots are 0 power.
Oh, that's right, the Doom bots.
The Doom bots are terrible. But there could be other stuff like White Tiger. He can eat the White Tiger. He can eat the normal Doctor Doom bots, and you're pretty happy with that. There's a ton of stuff like this. Honestly, he feels like almost location lockdown. Like he's going to be so powerful individually. You will need to find ways to protect him and then find a way to win another lane. So like storm the lane. He's going to keep on scaling it. Stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay. I'm also going... I might go 5. I love the character. He's one of my favorite characters, and then I love the concept, so I'm both very intrigued, and I think he's going to be strong enough that +2 every time he emerges, quite scary. Hydra Stomper.
We forgot to do Ultron, by the way, out of 5.
1. Are we doing competitive?
Really?
I don't... Listen, maybe the Wiccan deck is actually going to be playable, but I'm going pretty low on Infinite Ultron.
I really think he's just going to be just below average. I don't think he's going to be that bad. I think he's going to be like 2.5.
Okay.
Like,
Brad, you can't say we do it out of 5 and then put half pointers in here. You got to go out of 10 then, man.
I know, but I don't think he's bad enough to be a 2, and I don't think he's good enough to be a 3.
Okay.
So, okay, in reality-wise, he'd be a 5 out of 10. If we want to go out of 10, he'd be a 5.
Gotcha.
Just straight up a card.
Yep. Just a guy.
Yeah, just a guy.
Hydra Stomper, from everyone's favorite alternate universe where Steve Rogers ended up being a loser. They go ongoing +1 power for each time one of your cards moved this game. This guy seems really fun. Now you got to make sure it's one of your cards. So this is not a Scream Synergy card. This is a Move Synergy card. This is a Heimdall is my friend card.
0. I hate move decks. I hate this card. I will not be getting it. Move decks are my least favorite type of deck to play in the game. 0. Now, genuinely, probably a 3. He cares. So ongoing postal power. Each one of your cards move this game. Does he have to see them, or is he going to?
No, this would be like Morbius.
Morbius.
This would be like the same text as Morbius.
Well. Turn 1, Aranya or Iron Fist. Into turn 2, move something. Turn 3, this guy. Turn 4, move another thing with some other enabler because you have to kind of sequence it in with another movable card. Turn 5, you do that one more time. Turn 6, Heimdall. Heimdall is the one that really seals everything together because you move everything.
Yep.
So Heimdall and Cloak.
Well, here's the thing.
Your 2 best friends with this card.
If Heimdall just hits 6 cards on board, like you can play 6 cards very easily, right? And then he's a 3/8, which is like rate.
Wait.
So if you've moved anything else prior, it's worth.
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Let's bring back the Heimdall Juke in random decks just with this card as your one other payoff.
That's the thing. The payoff is actually high enough that if you were like, the thing is you have to have open board spaces to move, but you could move with Heimdall like 7 cards and then he's a 3/9.
What if you just do like an actual like ongoing list with like Captain America, Iron Man, and your like Spectrum or something like that with this card in there, just because it's an ongoing that gets all the buffs you care about as a 3/2. But then sometimes instead of going Spectrum, you go Heimdall.
Just to screw with people's minds. I think that move is really where you want to play him, and I think I like having him because he differentiates. Like you have move bounce, I think, which is currently very strong, and then you're going to have move Heimdall Hydra Stomper as an enabler there, because right now Heimdall really gets cut from those move bounce decks. But this is a way to pay off that huge shift. It's a time to bring in the Hercules. It's a time to use your Kraven, your Cloak, like these other move cards that don't see the light of day nearly as often right now. But, oh man, Hydra Stomper is going to get stacked if you are using like that core.
This is what we're doing. We're doing a Living Tribunal deck with Magic, right, of course, and Onslaught, Iron Man, all that stuff, but also with Heimdall on this guy. We're doing it. We're doing it.
Living Tribunal literally defeats the entire purpose of Heimdall.
Correct. But you get the boost of power onto this guy.
You do stack this guy.
Okay, I just hate move decks so much. I want to play him in anything that's not an actual move deck. And I do think, unironically, slotting him and Heimdall into any deck ever, you'll actually win a lot of games off of that package. Even when you whiff on
the Heimdall disguise and then the Hydra Stomper like rate power, then you just run like Silk in there, right? You're pretty happy with Silk as like a silky move kind of thing. Try and bounce her multiple times, bump a Kraven up, and then you just Heimdall at the end. There could be something there.
Can we bring that back? Can we bring Silky Smooth back with this card?
Because the thing is that it's every time one of your cards moves, not cards that moves, right? So if Silk gets moved twice in a turn, she put 2 power on Hydra Stomper. Hopefully she touched Kraven, so that's an extra +4, and you can just rinse and repeat.
Yeah, being able to run Spider-Man and stuff like that. Kraven. Maybe you can squeeze in Kingpin. We'll see. Scream, of course.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the opponent's cards moving is not triggering Hydra Stomper, but you could have a core there of like other Scream cards that are just really powerful right now.
Well, again, remember, you don't care about this guy getting so big where he's like a 315 or whatever. If he's just a 3/7 or a 3/8, you're pretty happy with that.
Right.
And then the moves that don't count for him, get buffs in your deck in a different way with either Kingpin or Scream, or falling into a Craven lane instead, where you're still getting the buffs you want anyway. It's just you're fitting another niche into that role, where then I think it makes a lot of sense. So I actually really like him.
Well, it's also that
an opponent moving kind of deck.
Yeah, because that deck can then set up the Heimdall juke. Like, you could literally force your opponent to play into the right lane, which you're going to evacuate, right?
Sure.
Yeah, with the Stegron and like the arrow, the opponent's looking at like, all my cards are on the right lane, but I'm winning so easily. Oh, you're gonna Heimdall. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Like, honestly, I'm surprised that arrow Heimdall hasn't been played more. You know, you arrow their big play to a lane that you're gonna then move arrow away from. It's fun.
Be the change you want to see in the world, Teddy.
Okay, well, you guys know where to find us when these cards release. We both are testing the new cards. I do it every Tuesday on card release. Brad, when are you hitting us with the content?
Well, depends on. Well, actually, I will have not this week, but the next week, pretty much entirely off. So I could stream a bit next week. I'll find some times to stream, but otherwise I'll make some videos for YouTube. I'm trying to do about 2 or 3 videos a week at the moment. One Snap, one Pokemon, and maybe one Magic thrown in if I feel it. But
are you going to be playing what is it, Riftbound, the physical League of Legends game?
No, Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, but I'm just curious, in the world of card gaming, because you're such a connoisseur, are you going to be trying this new League of Legends card game?
Yeah, I try every card game at least once.
Okay.
One Piece, the Star Wars game, stuff like that.
Yep.
But I'll definitely give it a shot.
Nice. All right. That wraps up this season. We've got a lot more data mines, but me and Brad have been catching up, so we'll hit you guys with those future season forecasts in another episode. A lot of really cool cards coming out, and we'll also keep you up to date on any balance changes and what we're loving in the current meta as well.
Yeah, and that's going to do it for us this week. See you guys soon, and Teddy.
Don't stop snapping.
Don't forget to stop snapping, baby.
Don't forget to stop snapping.
Can't Stop Snapping is a podcast hosted and produced by Brad Saffer and Teddy Ninja, originally created by Michael Thurman.